to make sure that every single session that we are doing in half September is recorded, and that's a good learning for the ecosystem in large itself. So, I think it's a great way of creating content that can actually help people in their own time as well. So I think let's at least I would love to start first with welcoming Zaran and Suresh. We have Paul and Rahul also coming in shortly. So first of all, thank you guys, thank you everyone for joining in for Startup September, 2nd September, our second event of the day. I hope you guys were there in the first event that we had with the OGs of Headstart. So we had a 1st September launch where the 16 founders from Headstart were all present, and we went back into time and talked about how Headstart all started. And in today's session, we will go deep into the ecosystem enablers itself. One of the key area or the key theme that we have for Startup September. We are lucky to have a lot of participants over here from the startup community, from the enabler community, be it incubators, academicians, investors and other folks. And for us, this is a great platform to talk about all the good work that the community has been doing in supporting the startup ecosystem. And Startup September is all about the ecosystem enablers. It's by the enablers, for the enablers, all coming together. Making this a success for us, sharing our learnings, networking, getting to know, and to all the participants over here. The panel that we have are all very active in the community and are always available for us to answer anything and help with, right? So let this session be a starting point, but in case you guys need anything, Zaran, Suresh, all of us are available on LinkedIn. Reach out to us. I think that's a perfect platform for connecting with us to talk more further about this. So coming to today's discussion around accelerators, we have talked a lot about investments. We talked about funding. We talked about supporting startups. One of the very important themes in this time has been the support through acceleration programs, which basically is providing startups who have found their product market fit in helping them grow up. A lot of investors are also looking at finding the time where the POC has been done, there has been a validation of the product, and now once you have found the right problem, the right customers to solve for it, how do I now scale my offerings? And one of the key things in the startup ecosystem or the startup domain itself has been the feature around scaling up. And that's why the acceleration programs have been a very important part of enabling the ecosystem and helping them grow. Especially, the key thing about that has been sharing of the learnings that we get from other founders. As founders, we are facing unique problems. But like us, there have been many founders who have gone through similar forms of these problems itself. And the acceleration programs provides a great opportunity to bring that learning as a whole to the ecosystem itself through these programs. For us, in today's session, we have five very diverse, esteemed panelists joining us for this conversation. We have Zaran from Anthill Ventures. Zaran is an investment associate, and he also runs the Accelerator program very closely with the Accelerator program itself at Anthill. We have Suresh, who is the vice president for at T-Hub, and he actually oversees a bunch of programs that are focused towards investment readiness acceleration as well. We'll also shortly have Paul and Rahul also join in from Google and Microsoft for startups, and both of them have been very active in providing the corporate support that has played a very important role in shaping the startups that we see right now. In today's session, what we'll do is we'll do more of a one-on-one session with each of the panelists, and then we'll open up the entire panel for Q&A with the attendees. For folks who are joining in, feel free to ask any question through the chat. And then, once we open up the floor for everyone, we will then go into discussing individually all of the questions together. So, Zaran, let's start, with you first. You are, again, being in the investment domain and being very actively working with startups and driving the Anthill's, investment and syndication practices across 3 locations, right? So you are in Singapore, India, Israel, and also, responsible for sourcing, structuring, and executing deals within the ecosystem. And with your focus area, being within the urban tech, medtech, health tech spaces where you very closely work with founders. I think there's a great amount of learning that we love to unearth in this discussion itself. So thank you so much for coming down to this panel discussion and being present over here.
A pleasure. Thank you so much for having me over, and kudos to the entire Headstart team for putting an amazing event like this in such short time. So fantastic.
I think there's going to be a great amount of things that is going to come up. But so quickly starting with, right? One of the things that we have always heard about has been the Athena scaling program, right? You guys have been doing some fabulous work over there, and one aspect that I really want to focus on has been the women entrepreneurship focus, right? Like encouraging the women to build for the future. How has the journey been, right? And I think that's also very important because we do see a challenge in terms of the number of women entrepreneurs in the ecosystem coming up. And I think such programs that we see with you guys running, and we have other partners also running, as an important way of enabling that. So would love to talk about the journey to start with, and also how do you go about finding the right women entrepreneurs for the program? How do you go about supporting them?
Right, thanks. And just to add a layer of context on top of Athena, what Antil does essentially, and what I do at Antil, is we find amazing companies in the domains that we invest in, which is media, health, smart cities, as you mentioned, consumer, and then we structure Accelerator, or what we call scaling programs, around them. Athena is a sub or a sister accelerator, as it were, of our consumer program, Urban Eye. The reason we adopt this method, or why any accelerator is here today, is because we want to be value beyond the dollar we put onto the capital. So we're putting in XYZ amount of money, but they're able to get much more value out of that money. And there are many ways to do this, and it depends on vertical to vertical. But specific to Antil Athena, first thing we did was we looked at our own portfolio. We realized only 30% were women-led. It's slightly above average, but it's not 50, right? The other thing we got a little bit, let's use the word fed up of hearing, is that there's a pipeline problem, which is the common response we hear, that if there are only such few startups led by women, then only such few startups will get investment. So we said, okay, let's study this. Let's study the landscape, and let's study what a program that's meant to help women founders should do over and above the general accelerator format. So Antil's acceleration format is very straightforward. We will create an entire ecosystem around the vertical. If you're in a D2C brand, for example, we will help you set up with your logistics, we'll help you with your vendors, we'll help you with sales, acceleration, distribution, so on and so forth. When we actually started speaking about Athena, it was a 6-month runway before actually going out to the market. We spent time with the 30% portfolio of the women that led the companies. We spent time with other founders in market. We spoke to other investors, and we broke down some of the key issues that are faced. Some of them are very obvious, right? Like, we don't have a proper mentor of the same gender who can help us and who's gone through this. But some of them are very weird. For example, we often heard vendors telling our women entrepreneurs, we can't work with you, because of their biases. So he said, this is ridiculous. We have to do something. So this was the outcome of that research that the team at Antil did, deep 4 months talking to different people, primary, secondary interviews. But at the same time, this is not CSR. This is very much an investment program. We are going to be putting our fund dollars into these companies, and we're going to be throwing everything behind these companies to help them scale. The process so far has proved one thing very clearly: there is no pipeline problem. We just looked at D2C, we just looked at women founders, and within 15 days of just looking at landscaping, there are 150 companies, that are within that pre-A gap. So there is no pipeline, right? It's just a perception issue. So it's been a fantastic experience. We should be going live towards the end of this month. I'm not at liberty to disclose who all we've put our cash investments into, but watch the space for more. We're very excited.
No, I think, very well put. When we talk about the pipeline, that's the general consensus that comes in. But as programs go deeper, we get more unearthed. At the same time, you also mentioned it's not CSR, it's pure business play. Any reasons why D2C and women?
Oh, that's a fantastic question, right? So why D2C is specifically born out of the thesis that Antil has been working on its consumer side. We recently onboarded a new partner, Mr. Kabir Kochar, who led the Glitch, scaled it all the way up, and then exited to WPP. And he came on board Anthill with another level of thesis, which was when you're looking at a consumer brand or B2C brand, especially in a market such as India, the kind of support we need to offer very different from the kind of support we offer our enterprise SaaS companies or our healthcare companies. There it's all about how do you give them agency grade marketing support and world-class infrastructure support at none of those prices, right? So even if we enter at a pre-A level, they can't afford Ogilvy, they can't afford WPP. So we built that out in-house. Athena will be supported, or all Athena founders will be supported by an in-house agency that we built. All of these are people that Kabir took with him to that sale to WPP. So we said, okay, what unfair advantage can we provide our startups? And that is why we selected this area.
No, perfect. I think, that's a wonderful thesis as well. And we look at this, we do see it's basically connecting with the consumers, and women consumers again are like a very big market area scope itself, right? So it's going to be very interesting to see, how this thesis turns out to be. But from a logical perspective, it seems very exciting. And I think, like you mentioned, it's basically more of a business output decision in terms of saying that, hey, this is a market where women can have a slight edge, right? Let's bet on them. Let's see how that comes out to be. So, hoping to, have this same discussion 6 months later, where we'll now actually, love to discuss about some of the nuances of the entire program itself. The second very interesting area with Anthill that we find is the, location. Like we talked about earlier, you guys are present in Israel, in Singapore, in India, right? And being a small team looking across all of these three geographic locations, you have a much bigger opportunity of getting all of them together and create synergies in collaboration. Would love to hear about some of the things that are happening, behind the scenes, where how, as partners also, when we're looking at our ecosystem enablers, when they work with partners across the board and across regions, is there something that that has really worked very well for Anthill across the three locations collaboration that can also be used by our partners?
Absolutely. So two things that I would like to stress upon for any accelerator or any investor that's looking to go global and have a certain volume of startups that they work with. The first is to go in deep in market. All my friends here that have run accelerators in the past know that resources is an issue, right? You're doing a lot of work for a potential outcome that might happen years down the line, but that doesn't put food on the table today. So the way to manage that is to create either a scouting network where people are compensated on a per deal basis to find these amazing deals, or what Anthill has done, which is a venture partner. Find venture partners in market that have deep domain expertise and experience who are sending you pre-vetted deals. Now, the Anthill promise is slightly different anyways, right? We're going to an Israeli company. A great example is CanFit 3D. It should be, if you Google CanFit 3D, you'll see what the amazing work they've done here in India through the Anthill acceleration programs. What we do is, or what the promise is we'll tell an Israeli company or a European company or American company, once you hit a certain level of scale, if you're an Israeli company, the first thing they do is they go look west. America mein kya ho raha hai, what's happening in the States. Our whole thesis is that stop doing that. Come east, see what's going on over here. There's a phenomenal market, and we'll help you. We'll set up the business. We'll get your first bit of validation rolling. We'll get you your initial traction at very little cost, right? Because we're funding that. That's literally what we're funding. So number one is finding the right deals through a partner network that has deep domain in market experience. I might be very good at understanding a smart city, but I might not be able to apply that if an Israeli firm comes to me in that domain. That's the first. So that part is how do you find the great deal. The second part is how do you ensure that they have collaboration and synergy. Now, this is where different people have differing opinions. My opinion has always been a two-pronged approach, which is number one, hire someone to do community, which means every day somebody has to be thinking strategically. Okay, I have a company that does offline retail. I have a mobile POS company. Why are they not using each other's products? So a community manager is very important. And if not, what Anthill does today is it consistently finds ways to add more perks to our community. These perks come from the very, very generous form of some of my co-panelists here. I mean, we have Microsoft, we have Google. The two of them alone give almost $200,000 combined, right? So every time I add a perk, it adds conversation. We've also realized another fantastic way to drive synergy is if any of our accelerators here are running community on Slack or running community on WhatsApp, you can have subgroups, not basis market, but basis problem. So you can have a subgroup on marketing, a subgroup on product, and then automatically the founders start talking amongst themselves, and this automatically drives outcome. So this is one or two of the learnings that we've had.
Fabulous. I think, be it the scouting or the community, like both of them are two very important things itself. And I think all of us over here, being, in the ecosystem enablers, I think we all believe the power of community itself and how that can really change the support that, startups can actually drive from, especially when they're hustling in the early stages. Coming to, I think we're going to be on time, so I'll just come to the last one of it, and that's going to be more specific to, especially your role as an investment associate as well, right? When you talk about scouting of good startups and, pre-vetted startup itself, what is the diagnostic methodology that Anthill follows to be able to identify which startups to really bet on?
Right. So, this is something we talk about a lot at Anthill, right? There are 3 toll boxes that you have to check for an Anthill investment. And just like in VC, just like in the world, if Anthill passes, it doesn't mean it's not a great company. It just means that we can't help, right? So the number one thing is, can we help? Even though we invest in healthcare, if you're a proper B2C healthcare play, we're not really the right partners. However, if you're an oncology play where you need clinical trials, you need validation, then that's what Lumos is all about. HCG is the largest oncology chain, and we use the HCG network to drive outcomes on your trials. So number one checkbox is what I referred to earlier. Can we add that XYZ value over on top of the dollar? The second one, obviously, is it an investable business, right? Can this return our fund? There is a power law at stake here, right? So is this a company that can go on to do 10, 20, 30 times our investment? And then the third finally is, a lot of people ask me this question. It's on our website. It's a scalability quotient. It's a diagnostic tool that we use. And it's more a tool to quantify qualifiable aspects of a startup. So we understand 108 different questions are asked. There are about 7 or 8 parameters. But this is more a diagnostic to give the Anthill team internally an understanding of where support is required. So it never tells us, oh, the score is low, don't invest in this business. It says, okay, fine, they're scoring a little low on sales, or they're scoring a little low on financials based on the questions we've asked. Okay, let's put our best brains behind it, help the startup. So it has to cross these 3 toll gates for us to be excited about it. And if it does, then it's a match made in heaven, because then that's what we're here to do.
So fair enough. No, I think, and that totally makes sense as well. I think, that's the same philosophy that we also work with all of our incubator partners or the corporate partners, where the focus especially is the first one, right? You only want to work on areas where you think you can add value, where you believe that you can add value, right? Be it through the learnings, be it through the network, be it through community. If the value is there, it's a great, combination for both the startup and then the partner as well, right? So that's important. And then, lastly, coming in, especially, you being the investor accelerator program in this panelist, right? This question is very relevant to you, where with the entire investment market really rising up, right? We're seeing so many unicorns coming in this year. We have 24 plus unicorns already, and it's, few more coming down, and we may have the earliest unicorn or the, youngest unicorn coming out very soon. And a lot of VCs, like we have like 500 plus VCs actually in India at this point in time. How important is the additional support apart from writing the check for quality startups to be able to attract them?
So this is a question we discuss a lot at Anthill, right? Now, if Mr. Kunal Shah were to start another company, would he really need an accelerator? The answer is probably no, right? He's done it many times before. He has the relevant network, the connection. But think about it, right? The whole point of an accelerator or a program such as this is we help you get from point A to point B fast. It's literally the definition. Now, if Mr. Kunal Shah starts this company, he's already at point B, right? If you have the InfoEdge guy starting another company, they're at point C, right? The point of an accelerator is we have a fantastic product, a fantastic business. Find the white space and plug that in. And sometimes dollars alone don't do that, right? And that's why the number one question is, can we help? That's the most important thing. Now, for some people, very important. We have fantastic entrepreneurs coming out of tier 2, tier 3 India, right? Who may not have the network that they need to scale an enterprise SaaS platform. or the know-how on how to manage or navigate a pilot. These are things that dollars don't solve. These are things that handheld support solve. These are things that mentorship solves. So it's very important for the right demographic. And that's why there are, I don't know how many hundred accelerator programs here in India today. They're all doing good work, but it's incumbent on the accelerator manager. And I manage the different programs at Anvil. So it's one of the number one question I ask my program managers is, where does this fit? Is this an actual fit with the entrepreneur, or they're just doing it because they want the cash and a few business connections? It's good, but it's not going to yield ultimate value. So this is the big, it's incumbent on the accelerator, it's incumbent on the founder also, because otherwise you're committing, 9-10 months of headspace to a particular accelerator, sometimes office space also, right?
Yes.
So if you're committing that, it has to be a match made in heaven. Otherwise, you're wasting their time, you're wasting yours. And the outcomes won't be great. So that's the number one thing you have to ask. Is it relevant and is it a fit?
Perfect. I think this has been super helpful, Zaran, and keeping the time check also in mind. We'll come back to you with the complete panel as well. But this has been really interesting to understand, from you about Anthill, about different programs that you've been doing, and also the thought process behind it. I think there's a good enough learning for our audience over here, both from the startup domain and the enablers, to be able to take learnings from them, right? So now moving on to the next panel that we next panelists that we have in this group, would love to invite Mr. Paul Ravindranath to this discussion. So Paul is the program manager and developer relations and head of Google Accelerator for startups in India, and he has been in the ecosystem for more than a decade right now. Working at Google for various teams, and specializes in people, program, and project management itself. And one of the key areas also being the entire developer relations. Currently, he spends most of his time driving success for the startups via the Google for Startup program, and has been very passionate about startups in India, and especially the ones, especially towards promoting the use of cutting edge tech, right? And I think we have all are very well aware about Google for Startups and the amazing things Google has been doing in the startup community. This discussion, Paul, thank you so much for joining us over here.
Thanks for having me.
To start with, right? I think Google for Startup Accelerator has been again, one of the very famous names and the famous brands in the ecosystem, where we have some really good startups coming and applying to it. So just to start a very basic thing, for a lot of folks who may have just heard but don't know the behind the scenes to it, can you just help us explain about the entire program, how it works, and what are the benefits that startups do take from here?
Sure, thanks. Firstly, thanks for having me. Thanks to you and Headstart team, and glad to meet Rahul, Jaran, and Suresh as a co-panelist. Sorry, I was a little late to join in with the Zoom link, so please excuse. Well, as GFS, as we are now known, were called Launchpad a little earlier. Our efforts started about 5 years ago when we were just doing like a 1 week kind of an engagement with startups in our office in Israel. We were heavily ML AI guys at Google, and we just wanted to kind of engage with some of the innovative startups that are happening out there in the Israeli ecosystem. So we started there. We thought, why don't we just call them in and see how can we help these startups, or how can we learn from what are the cool things they are building. And it's a conversation that began there, and it kind of evolved or snowballed into a 1 week mentoring program, because we got such great kind of feedback from the ecosystem and engagement from founders, that we kind of made this 1 week format all over the world. It was called the Launchpad Week, and that's how we began. And over the years, it kind of snowballed into a global accelerator, which then became multiple regional accelerators. And today we're called Google for Startups, over 10 accelerators all over the world. A little bit of quick context and background is that this accelerator is run by a core engineering program management team at Google. The heart of everything we do is community. We engage essentially with the tech communities, and we belong to an organization called Developer Relations. And therefore, the DNA of our engagement, or the mothership, if you will, of this whole initiative is based and embedded in kind of our love for technology and building up tech ecosystems out there by working with people who are building really cutting edge products, amazing innovative kind of solutions, and founders that really drive value in whatever ecosystem they're solving for. So that's kind of where we come from. and we essentially love engaging with, at heart, we are developers at heart. We love engaging with founders and startups that have like tech at the core of everything that they do. That's a little bit of the background of the Google for Startup program. We are down now several cohorts, over almost 100 companies, accelerated over time. And we've had a fair degree of success. We have almost $2 billion in fundraise. We have unicorn in our portfolio. We have several acquisitions and so on. We'd like to think that we were able to add a little bit of value for sure with some of these companies that we work with.
No, I think you certainly have been very modest about the impact that the Google for Startup has been creating. With the likes of Rentamojo, Curify, and very interesting startups that we actually see in Google for Startups India itself being there. And I think speaking to a few founders, I've also learned about the type of support which has been provided. I think of course the brand name has been very effective and very useful, but more than that, it has been the entire program structure itself and the support that the team gets that has played a very big role in their success itself. Would love to understand from you, what are some of the best practices that you feel are from the core reasons for success of this program and that has really helped startups in their journey?
Sure. I mean, it's going to sound like I'm stating the obvious things, but we have kind of fine-tuned an approach which is essentially a founder-first approach. At Google, or being a corporate accelerator, we are not attached with any of our kind of core products in terms of adoption or sales. And therefore, we are a completely separate org within Google that's empowered to just go build the ecosystem and drive value to founders. So that's the number one thing that, when we work with founders, we're a corporate accelerator. There's always this question of, why are you doing this? Like, what's in it for you? And here, truly, this is about ecosystem building as a program, right? So I think there's a lot of psychological safety, if you will, amongst the founder community. And just generally, it's a giving program. It's about a community of giving back. So that's how we position, Google for Startup Accelerator. And with that positioning, I think itself drives tons and tons of value. Second thing is our programming, right? So we have very clearly defined processes in our program, and that starts with the application form itself, allowing us to find and bubble up the people that we might want to work with. And once we do have a class, we have a very specific diagnostics process that's actually organized or orchestrated by a panel of mentors that involves not only Google and Google teams, but people from the industry as well. So we have this whole idea of anchor mentors who kind of anchor your journey through the program. And this diagnostics call right at the beginning of the acceleration really helps us get deep into finding an understanding of the startup's needs. And thereafter, a lot of the program is highly customized per startup. And that's, I think, I would say one of the most unique things that our founders highlight as having got out of the program. Often programs that are cohort based, like our accelerator program is, tend to become about a curriculum, right? You get through one end, you go through a certain number of talks and some kind of, and you get out the other. But this has talks and workshops too, but they are highly customized to the startup and the core needs we've identified through diagnostics. So I think it's all based on finding the needs and then making sure that every startup journey is as unique as possible and as we can drive as much value as possible. It's not easy, right? It's definitely not something that easy to scale, but it is the model that drives the most amount of value. You might be on mute, Taha. Sorry.
Thank you, Paul. Sorry, I was saying, totally agree with you on that one. So we have also been driving a lot of acceleration programs with our incubator partners, and there's a big, big difference that we also see between an incubation and acceleration, right? Whereas as a pre-incubation or incubation, you can still do a lot more of, let's say, general sessions with some, again, with a more tailored mentoring. But as we go into the acceleration model, now the startups are much more mature. Their problems are again, more specific. There's also a lot of information out there for founders to just go and get it. But as an accelerator program, they're looking at the right relevant connects who have already gone through that, who can actually provide the experience more than just the theory, which really enables that part of it. And to one point that you mentioned, which is something that I have also been, very deeply working with incubators on is the diagnostic element, right? So we always think of, hey, when a startup comes to a program, they ask, hey, what is your structure, right? And we always talk about the later part of it, that, we're going to have customized program for you, we're going to do this, right? But a lot of, if the right emphasis is given towards the diagnostics, right, where you're able to identify which problem needs to solve for, because a lot of times we see founders coming with their own thought process and saying, hey, this is my problem, but actually the problem is very different, right? And in
Yeah.
the medical terms, it's not about the surgery, the solution. It's about finding the right problem. If you found the right problem, then you can solve for it. But if you have not found it, you can just go round and round in circles itself. So
Absolutely.
would love to go deeper into the diagnostic space, and if you can share some more insights in terms of how are you really identifying, because that's again especially with startups coming with their own mindset, their own experience, and the team now coming from outside and looking at the problems that they're going through. How do you really identify the right problems for the startups?
Yeah. So I think the first thing is to get the founders and the CXOs in the right mindset to truly share what are the challenges they're facing. Often when we get into these calls, they become a pitching session, right? And we have a rule: no pitches, right? We just cut through all of that and just say, like, treat us as an extended team. We are here to kind of work with you to find the root causes, and not really. I mean, you're in the program. You don't have to wow us anymore. Let's see what's under the hood, what's not working. We start the conversation. Most of the conversations like that, and every mentoring session we have specific document we send out which has these three tenets that we talk about, like no pitching. Just get to specific problem you're solving and bring data, right? So trying to be highly data driven and doing analysis and getting into the root cause. I think that's one of the main things in our diagnostics that helps us to kind of focus conversations and really get to solving for whatever is the core needs that they have. And I like what Zaran had mentioned earlier. Like, even when we select startups, we're already trying to think of how can we add value, and can we add value at all. And one of the unique things in our accelerators is it's a heterogeneous batch. We'll have a seed stage company there. We'll also have a Series B company in the same class, right? So it's a broad range, seed to Series B, Series A companies coming in, and we love this whole cross pollination of ideas where some of the startups can actually benefit from the other startups in the program. And I think the other value here through this program is some of the startups are able to help the others too. So creation of this whole community angle is possible. And mentors are the other main thing in this program that add a lot of value, right? So just the access to industry, but also have the deep tech access to Google, and combine that with like a really, really awesome process, uh, just drives value to of discovery of problems and diagnostics. So that's how I think. I mean, this has obviously not happened overnight, right? We are in fifth cohort, so I mean, it's evolved over time, and therefore now we believe we have a model that really drives the most value to founders or startups in the program.
No, true. I think, like you also said at the start, these are again the fundamentals which are, when you hear them, you just feel it's right. But, it's years of practice to actually make them work. Because when you start implementing it, it's human behavior that also comes into play, right? Not all startups would take it the right way. Not all the communications would be put in the right way forward itself, right? And it's also about, understanding the mindset of all the players, be it the mentors, the startups that are coming on board, and figuring out how do you work with them, that really creates that success for the program. Uh, Now, this is the theme that we also talk with Zaran, and this is again important for, from what Google does, the Women Launchpad program, right? And we do see, women in tech has been a very big motto in the West, and we're now seeing a big push over here, and that has improved. Like, we now have around 40% women workforce in the tech world, and that's actually enabling more opportunities over there. But we still are finding the leadership not really grown that much. And the same thing we are seeing in the entrepreneurship space as well. And I think, focused programs like this are really helpful. Zaran's model was, more towards being an investment accelerator. They were more focused towards the business, and their thesis, that's why the niche was around D2C women program that they were looking at. Would love to understand what are the thesis behind the Women Launchpad that you guys launched 3 years back.
Yeah. So in the early days when Accelerator was out there, or even when we were doing this 1 week program, the data told us that less than 10% of applicants to the program were women founders. Um, Less than 10%, right? So, and at the time, I think it wasn't surprising, right? So one of the ways that we can, I mean, no accelerator or incubator would go out and do a quota system, right? But I think working on the pipeline is very, very important to end up with the outcomes that we would like. I think we need to solve for the outcomes. So we did a little bit of research in understanding the women founders who applied. Why did they apply to this program versus say any other program? And we also tried to understand many women founders we already knew. Why didn't they apply to accelerator programs? So some things we learned. One is, and by no means this is like it's not a massive sample size or anything like that, but it's definitely indicative. So some of the findings were: one, women wait longer to apply to any support program. Um, First, they want to prove to themselves that look, I am at the right stage to get help here. Whereas some startups that are headed by men, they don't really care. They just say like, look, I'm going to try and see if it sticks, right? So I think women founders tend to have a little bit more of a perfectionist leaning before they even seek help. They try and solve for things on, and these I'm talking only purely women founded, not women co-founded startups. So that's one of the things. Second thing is, so they feel like I'm not ready for this program yet, right? I think that's the exact quote that we kept getting. Whereas several people who got in, they got in because they had great traction, women, men founded startups, but they were not there yet. But we did select them because of the fact that we could do so much with them. So we started working on that, pipelining to our accelerator program with smaller activities and engagements with the women founder community to learn one and understand how can we help them. One, it is true that a lot of those startups were a little bit more on the earlier stage side, and there were other challenges in terms of funding and other things, which is true even today. So we started working slowly. We would do about 10 or 20 3-day, 10 or 20 startups, 3-day boot camps, two of them in a year, and see if that kind of helps us with the pipelining to accelerator program. And surely enough, over 2 years or so, we went from about less than 10% applicants to almost 25, 26% applicants who are women who applied to the program. Many of them were pipelined through, say, the boot camps we did over time. So I think these exercises are very important in kind of pushing the ecosystem forward. And data does say like only 6% of women co-founded startups are funded, right? So only 6%. And if you just look at startups that are only have only women founders, it's less than 2% of them in the funded startups list. So that's a clear indicator of effort that we need to put in there. Not only that, if you look at what are the needs that are highlighted by women founders, one of the core needs is not having the right mentors or not having, say, other women founders that they could kind of emulate. And these are early stage founders I'm talking about. So they want more of that. They want more of mentoring. They want more of all of those things. So that's why we've been continuously doing these programs, and we are quite passionate about that. So it's really important for us to design programs that try and surface really great women founders. And I'm not a big fan of doing women only or women founder only programs, to be honest, because when you look at the rest of the problem set that founders face, it's applicable to all founders, right? But few things like funding, access to other women whom they can look up to, sometimes that makes a big difference, and those things are there. But the rest of the problems broadly are very, very similar. So, but I do believe women found focused programs have their place and they're very, very important.
So, Paul, any message for a lot of enablers in this community right now and in this group as well, who do support programs for startups in different forms, on how can they what things that they should keep in mind while working with women entrepreneurs? Is there something that like one piece of advice that can really help change some behaviors or outcomes when they work with women entrepreneurs?
Actually, I would say you should approach women founders and programs the same way as we do with any startup, right? I think apart from the women founder and the Google for Startup work, we go as Google, there's another program that I used to oversee called the Women Tech Makers that just deals with women in tech in general, not founder personas, but people who are women in tech. And that also there is a problem. And a few of the learnings from there is women in tech, even senior leaders, they prefer environments where they can learn from other women. I think it's easier for them to connect and relate, and it's easier for them to kind of engage. And it's just a little bit, it just catalyzes the whole process of getting this whole women founder mainstreamed a little bit more than it already is. So therefore, I'd say best practices definitely ensure you have a team who has really great women program managers who are engaging here, right? It's about, I mean, as men, we can be great allies and support, but it does help to some extent, especially with early stage women founders, and people are just getting into entrepreneurship. Second thing, like I said, is like programming wise, I wouldn't change anything other than just bringing in some key elements that are very specific to women. And there's a bunch of research out there on what can we build into programs that are very women focused. Funding is a huge part of it, but access to other women, even inclusion generally, right? In most panels, we see that it's hard to find or include women, even in this one, right? So it makes a big difference, I think, and it has to be a deliberate, conscious effort on everyone's part.
No, perfect. I think agreed. And also, realizing that both men and women have their own strengths, right? And as a team, when they work together, I think that's also really helps appreciate. And I've been lucky enough to have some amazing women leaders in my life that have really shaped my outlook towards things. And and also just one note in terms of appreciation for women in terms of managing both things at home, kids, and work. uh, I just find them to be much better fighters with so many hurdles to be able to take off and do things up. Anyway, so moving forward, one last thing, and this again, being the forum for getting ecosystem together and the enablers all together itself, collaboration has been a very important theme. As we look to make the ecosystem strong, collaborations are very, very important. And Google for Startup also has some really nice organizations, like 70 plus organizations across the world that you guys partner with, right? What is the philosophy for these partnerships? How are you guys getting those partners on board, those collaborations more successful, and helping drive more ecosystem engagements on the ground? And then a follow up to that also would be for a lot of the incubators or the partners that we have on this call, for them to be successful in solving, how can they work together with Google for Startup, or implement some of the best practices that you guys have to help build their own strong collaboration itself?
Sure, Taha. So apart, the accelerator is more of a depth-based engagement. Clearly, it's a high-touch program. We get about 40 companies we accelerate in a given year. But if you look at the opportunity for driving value to the ecosystem, in a country like India, I think one has to respect the opportunity at hand as well. And that's where this whole partner program comes in. And we have a program where any accelerator incubator out there can try to connect with Google and get into the Google for Startup partner program. We handpick and we work closely, and we find people who have kind of a founder first approach, free and open ecosystem based kind of engagements, and who have really solid programs and programming for their own startups, and we try to engage with them. And what we essentially do is Google for Startups, the bones of the program, the foundation of our program is our mentor community, which involves more than 20 Google teams, more than 200 plus industry mentors, and access to our entire international network of mentors. And regularly, given that we're Google, we have access to really awesome tech content, right? So it could be on machine learning, it could be on Android, cloud, all of that stuff, the latest and greatest. We are able to push out to engineering teams within startups and CTOs and the rest of them. So from a content perspective, we have really solid what we call labs in our content arsenal, right? So all of this stuff we do apply in our accelerator, but we wanted to expose it out there and give it out as value components for the ecosystem at large through our partner network. So we are slowly but surely growing our partner network, and they get access to the best of Google, right, including all of this content mentors. And we know, for example, from a challenges perspective, incubators one, getting access to quality mentors is a challenge amongst incubators. Second is investors typically look at the quality of the startups and are they investable. So I think there is also the discovery and onboarding of the right kind of startups amongst incubators and accelerators. That's again an area to improve actually across the ecosystem. We also look at access to the industry trends, the latest in technology. Not every incubator is able to bring that kind of knowledge and content to their portfolio, right? I think that again is a gap that we are trying to address with broad-based activities that we are doing. And the last one, and I think is very important, is having the right people running the programs amongst incubators is the most important thing. You need to have great program managers if who have some kind of entrepreneurial background, or at least they're entrepreneurial and they know and understand the ecosystem really well. I think that's really, really important to have the right people running these programs. And as a program, as a GFS partner network, we, like I said in the beginning, we're a believer in community. It's about giving back. So we do share all of the stuff freely and openly, but we do work with a few select partners so we can have a much deeper engagement and network with their portfolio companies as well. So anyone can go out there and check out the Google for Startup Partner Program today.
No, perfect. I think this has been really, helpful for us to understand, Paul, and I think also a lot of inspiration and learning itself. Uh, I'm sure that both these startups and the enablers in this group, for them, of course, the entire program values for Google for Startups in terms of learning, in terms of tech, in terms of mentors, is all immense. But like you also mentioned that for the partner programs, totally agreed. It's the right structure and the right team. Having a combination of both of them is very important to be able to bring in the impact, right? And it's great to see how Google actually works with these partners, enabling that better. Because I think the type of goals or the type of numbers that we are looking at as a startup community growing itself, we need more and more such partners, more and more enablers coming in, building on the best practices. And similar to how we have accelerators for startups where we are sharing learnings, I think there has to be similar programs for enablers also, to be able to ensure that they take the learnings. You don't have to make the same mistakes, and at the same time build the right talent pool for them to be engaging on. I think it's a great space. We do see a lot of value over here. I just one last thing I want to end with, and this is a very small question. Zaran talked about they're one of the key factors for them. Is also investability, right? And like you mentioned, for Google for Startup, it's more for impact itself, right? How do you see between a good startup who could be scaling up and great investor potential versus a startup may not really have a great business model, but the impact of the technology or that work is immense?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question, and this is where we don't box ourselves into a sector, B2B, B2C, or any other thing. In retrospect, fintech, healthcare, agri-tech tends to be has been a space. And when I look at it on why, one of the common factors is the application of really cutting edge tech. So a great example is a company called Niramai that
Yep.
does breast cancer detection, and there are published case study on Google as well on how they apply ML and AI to do early breast cancer detection. There it's all about core technology and how they were able to, and we were able to add so much value there, and also learn from that experience back from them as well. uh, on the other hand, you have say a startup like ShareChat, which is a unicorn but was a seed stage company when we engaged with them, and we were helping them figure out like better engagement models, UX, research. And it's never for us about, we never select a company thinking that okay, this is going to be a unicorn company. We see an opportunity of what area they're working on is going to grow, and we look at the traction they've already got, and we try and help them with these early decisions on tech stack, architecting for scale, or having the right product strategy right on the early onset as a seed company, so they when they scale, they hit it really big. So it's all about impact, right? It's all about value. ShareChat now is used by billions, and Niramai is doing such meaningful work and probably saves lives. And similarly, we have stories like Visa in the mental health space, multiple other fintech companies, and so on. So it's we count our wins by how impactful these startups have gone on to become.
No, that's super helpful, I think, and that's also important. Like you also starting up with, right? Not every business model can build the big bucks, but can change lives, right? I think there has to be a balance between supporting either of that, and as you mentioned, the programs focused towards build technology. I think impact focused technology can have a much bigger value also over here. So that's
Yeah,
great to
well
hear.
said, Taha.
Thank you so much, Paul. I know we'll get back into the panel format very soon. Would love to now invite Rahul on the call. Rahul, thank you for joining us for this session. Great to have you over here. So Rahul is, the deal for manager at Microsoft for startups and a community builder at heart. He has, an ex Headstarter and Headstarter volunteer itself. Has been has like a decade long experience in the information and communication technology research and public policy domain itself. He has worked as a consultant in KPMG, where his role was also focused towards entrepreneurship. He has supported the startup ecosystem across many states like Rajasthan, and also started the iStart program, which has been like very very famous, and we really hear good things about the program itself from a lot of the chapter founders over there. Uh, Rahul also has been very actively, advocating all the challenges that the ecosystem has, and as well as highlights a lot of success stories that educates and inspire young entrepreneurs, and has been very open to joining us for sessions like these, where he's being able to share his thoughts and views to both the founders and enablers itself. So thank you so much, Rahul, for coming down over here. Rahul, why don't we have a quick introduction from yourself, about what you do at Microsoft for Startups, what is Microsoft for Startup all about, and then we can take it from there.
Sure. Taha, thank you so much for that very gracious introduction. And always pleasure to be part of any Headstart platform. So my name is Rahul. I manage the deal flow at the Microsoft for Startups program. So I scout for startups, speak with the founders, help them understand what the program is all about, what is the value proposition that the program brings in, and once there is an agreement from both sides, I also support the startups in onboarding to the program. Apart from that, I also drive ecosystem partnerships as part of my role. So looking for engaging with the ecosystem enablers, incubators, accelerators throughout the country, and try and see how we can, do initiatives that can drive ecosystem work and help startups at a holistic level. That's the work that I do. The program is focused on accelerating B2B startups that are in the enterprise domain. Microsoft has enterprise heavy engagement throughout the world, and to add value to our existing enterprise clients, we have the startup program where we bring in the startup solutions, we accelerate them, we make them enterprise ready, and we take them to the market and introduce them to our enterprise clients. So we add value to our enterprise clients by giving them the startup solutions powered by Microsoft. We add value to the startups by accelerating them, giving them a lot of resources, the technology expertise, and also the support on becoming enterprise ready. Once startups and enterprises are engaging with each other, and there is an impact in terms of not just doing business but also growing and scaling up, Microsoft also grows as the technology platform. So that's in a nutshell about the program.
No, I think that's great, and also good to hear about the focus area. I've always been very appreciative about such programs where the biggest challenge that we see for startups, once they start, has been around scaling and being able to bring their product to the market. And lot of the corporates that we see have a very strong base. I think Microsoft again has a very strong base of customer pool who trust the brand, who basically has been interacting with the brand for a very long time, and getting startups to recommend to them is a win-win deal for everyone, right? Where the clients of the Microsoft clients itself are getting more value. Startups are getting a much bigger platform. They're already being vetted at one end, so the client feels much more satisfied, and they are also providing the right support over there. So I think it's a great model which really enables us to provide the right support in terms of scaling from a business perspective, which is again one of the most biggest challenge that we see in entrepreneurship. So can would love to also discuss around some of the more detailed initiatives that you have as part of the Microsoft for Startup. What are you guys doing in terms of enabling the system still being stronger? Like you mentioned, you have both the views. One is talking to startups, working with them, explaining the benefits itself, and then the second is enablers, building an ecosystem, right? What are some of the initiatives that Microsoft is already doing right now?
So a lot of them. So apart from the usual B2B enterprise connects that we do between the startups and the enterprises, we have a social impact program also known as Project Amplify. So it's, and there are three stakeholders involved. Microsoft for Startups as a team, we have the Microsoft Research Lab coming in. We also have Accenture India Labs coming in. So these three stakeholders are always present to power up the social impact startups who are having a technology play. So what is it that these stakeholders can come in, help the startups in the social segment and really, throttle them and sort of amplify the impact that they are bound to do as a social enterprise. So we have a social impact program running. We also have the Microsoft Capital Circle initiative, which was kickstarted by Gautam and Latika, who also heads the Microsoft for Startups program in India. We focus on engaging with the top venture capital and private equity funds, looking at the pain points that they as a fund are facing in order to enhance the opportunities from the portfolios that they have invested in the startups. So how can we interact with both the VC community and the startups that are part of these VC communities? So we understand a lot of risk has been put in from both angles. Startups have got a lot of investments coming in. How do they ensure that they give it back to the investors? And the investors also have put in the money. So how do they take it back from them in terms of a profitable relationship? That's all what matters in the end. So we have identified that technology expertise is something which can help a lot of these engagements to streamline, and that's where we are trying to add value. We speak to the VC communities, help startups from their portfolios to come into our program. And the beauty of our program is that we speak to each and every founder before we even want to consider them for the program, because we want to know what is it that we can bring to them as a benefit. Yes, we have the larger program in front of us, but it has to be tailor made for each and every founder, because there are specific needs and requirements that a founder would require. So we speak with all of them, we let them know what is, and we set the expectations right. So it's a very, very transparent and a informal conversation that we do. This has enabled us to build a lot of trust from both sides. So these are Series A and above startups that are part of this VC portfolios. The VC community also has started to look upon us as somebody who we come with an open mindset to add value at both angles. So the Capital Circle initiative has been running. We have the social impact program. The broader startup program is also live. So these are some of the things which we as a team are trying to run in the country. You're on mute.
Sorry, yeah.
No problem.
So going into the the early stage startups itself, right? A lot of challenges that we see for early stage startup that are looking to build the right product, build the right customer base itself, and Microsoft having both the technology support and the business support provided to them. What are some of the specific use cases, examples that you have seen in previous cohorts of how startups have benefited the most from this program? And is there any learnings for startups that have not yet in the program but they can take to in building their own ventures itself?
Yes, so I think I'm fortunate enough to speaking on this platform. What the biggest learning that we have seen is that there are a lot of it's quite overwhelming for many founders to even think that how can they speak with Microsoft. It's a large organization, it's a global organization, and where can be the connect, that can help them out. So that has been a learning, a massive learning for us, that how do we ensure that there is a comfort level, there are people whom these founders can reach out to and they can speak with. As ecosystem enablers, people coming from the ecosystem, we've been part of the program, we've been able to, create that comfort level. That is a big learning which we have seen coming in, and things have changed a lot, so all the apprehensions, all the concerns, and all the hesitation to speak with us has changed a lot. So that's one learning that we have seen. From the founder side, I think because the kind of length and breadth engagement on the technology side that we provide helps startups to really understand the true potential of what the tech architecture that they have built can be. How can it be really enhanced? So those learnings, those interactions, those deep dives that we do with startup founders has really benefited them to a large extent. They may have some understanding of what a technology may do, but with the experts coming in, talking to them, it's really helped them to propel the technology stack and have helped them to go to market at a much faster pace.
No, certainly. I think that's been a great value add, that we certainly see. And I think the entire thought process is changing. I do see, people now being much more open and reaching out for support. And, I think it's also great work by the team that has been doing over here, where now they feel it much more approachable. I think that's a great start, where you may not really be part of program, but I've seen a lot of startups being value from Microsoft itself, even they're not part of the program. I think that's where, being able to reach out, being able to have very clear ask, is really helping startups also evolve in this space itself. Another space, right? I think partnership, again, we talked about the team over here, and collaboration has been a big thing. Microsoft for Startup again has, just recently partnered with Invest India and, support from Agni Mission. You're launching, you have onboarded 11 startups, right? Across various sectors from industries like agriculture, defense, IT, all of these places, right? How do you see this partnership really benefiting the ecosystem, and, what type of long-term impact that you're seeing this partnership can really bring in for the ecosystem itself?
Sure. So I think when we started engaging with the Invest India's Agni Mission team, and we looked at the work that they are doing, so they have startups that have signed up for on the platform. A lot of these startups are in the POC stage or in pilot stage or have just commercialized, or looking for commercialization. So that's what the Agni Mission team does. They bring these startups, they create a pool, and then they reach out to the different corporates, and how they can take some of these startups to the corporates and help these innovators commercialize the offerings and the solutions that they have built. So there was a clear synergy between both of us. As the startup program, we also want to promote innovation. We want to establish the fact that deep tech innovation is the way to go for India as a country. So there was a clear line of alignment for us, and then we started engaging with them. We interacted with around 32 startups from their list. We finally zeroed in on the 11 with whom we want to now work with, and most of them are yet to commercialize their solution. So we want to power them up with the Microsoft technologies, really help them reach to a level where they can achieve scalability, not just at a regional level but also at a global level, and how they can really move from being just an innovator to eventually becoming a startup and then maturing into a business. So that's the long-term plan that we have with all of these, and how do we then really help them in the go-to market.
Fair enough. I think that's a really great journey itself, and I really, it's good to see having startups from a very early stage coming in and Microsoft engaging. I think that's a very positive impact that the ecosystem will have from just this. Uh, and so one last question before we move on to the next speaker, and this is again a very interesting one in terms of the partnerships that we are seeing. Right, so we talked about partnership across enablers. There's also a very strong corporate academia partnership that goes very back, right? I think to drive research and innovation, corporates and academia have been working very closely together for a very long time. And now in this era, we are seeing startups as a forefront of bringing innovation to market. So they are much faster into innovation, more focused into the use of innovation itself. How do you see this partnership now, let's say, involving between corporates and academia, with both of them having their own innovation hubs, like the corporate innovation programs and incubators, and now they're together, can now combinedly work with startups and the impact that they can create over here?
Oh, I think these are, I mean, as a ecosystem enabler, we are very fortunate to see all of this happening right in front of us. So a lot of corporates, mainly in the space of technology, are wanting and are very open to work with innovators and startups. And that's what exactly the program that we do also run. So enterprises know what the problem areas are, what are the use cases. Can we as enablers from the ecosystem side, from the technology side, offer them certain solutions to them? So as Microsoft, we are absolutely clear that even if we want to promote and enable this relationship between corporates and the startups, we want to advocate for commercial contracts, paid POC engagements only. It has to be a wealth creation opportunity for our startups. And fortunately, corporates are liking the fact, because there is a lot of accountability then coming in. Free POC engagements don't see that much impact coming in. So on the corporate side, we have started engaging with them, rolling out paid POC opportunities. We match make that to the kind of startups we have in a program. We curate, we allow these startups to pitch. Commercial contracts is what startups get through this relationship. On the academic side, yes, we do realize that a lot of early stage companies are there. They need a lot of support from our end. So we are very, very open. We want to partner with as many incubators as we can. Look at the specific areas. We don't want to have a broad-based kind of a partnership, just a namesake partnership. We want to drill it down to the specifics. It may be just 2-3 things that we can do for the next few weeks or months, but at least it has to be something that adds value to both of us. So those kind of things that we are looking for. We've been fortunate to start working with a few academic institutes also, identifying startups from their current cohort. We bring them into the program. We speak with the founders. We speak with the team that is running and managing the incubation, and those kind of engagements have started off. It just helps in aligning everything. And if you look at the broader ecosystem, doing these things and helping, just facilitating people talking to each other, this alignment, removes most of the concerns and the dust, that's out there.
No, agreed. I think both the corporate and the academia has their own strong suit, and for a startup, if they're able to leverage both of them in terms of solving the right problem and solving the right way. Right? I think if both the ways comes together, I think that's where we see a better fit in terms of solution actually, getting commercialized into the market itself. So, great to hear about both, paid commercial. I think that's a very important step. Very much agree that, when it is a free POC, it is good to have that name, but it doesn't really materialize, and that's where it's actually important to be able to make sure that there's stakes from all the sides involved, to be, have vested interest in the success of that pilot itself coming in. So Rahul, thank you so much for sharing such good insights and deep insights regarding the Microsoft startup and the work that you guys have been doing. We'll get back to you with for more audience questions at the end of the panel. Would love to now invite Mr. Suresh onto the panel. Hey, Mr. Suresh. Good evening, sir. How are you doing?
Good evening, Taha. How are you?
All well. So
Yes.
just a quick introduction about yourself, before we give you the mic to take it forward. So Mr. Suresh is the Vice President for Startup Innovation at T-Hub. He is someone that we have also very closely worked with regularly, and someone I personally feel is very driven by outcomes and data, and very much focused towards quality. Having having a great thought process in terms of structuring of ideas, in terms of executing the way that has to be. There's a lot to be learned from him, and he actually thrives in working with people and believes in enabling them. And I think that's what we see with his team as well. Prior to joining T-Hub, he has worked in the world of computers for close to 30 years with various industries and technologies. Going to the role of general manager for operations itself, and he has built teams in 3 different organizations. Been part of 4 startup journeys. So he really understands the pain points of startups, the different struggles at different point in time that startup goes through, and something that he has really leveraged a lot in his experience in his work at T-Hub itself. He has also been a corporate and management trainer. Organized various workshops for college students, for faculty development, for corporate itself. While he's not a teacher by profession, but he really enjoys the entire activity of grooming young minds. From an educational background, he comes from a BTech from IIT Kharagpur and has a dual master degrees from MIT and Northeastern University. So, a great background today that you're coming from on this forum, and it's also great to have someone like you with such vast history and different and the focus towards people now playing that role at T-Hub of enabling the teams to drive different programs. So would love to hear from you about T-Hub, about yourself as a start, and then we can go on to the Q&As.
Yeah, thanks, Taha. I think that was very generous introduction. I think it's more than where I come from. It is matter of what is it that we can look forward to in the future. So I think, I pride myself in terms of saying that I understand the startup journey, and I want to be in discussions with the startups. So one of the key things is that it's not about the position I hold; it's about what value I bring to the startups. And even today, I insist that every day I should talk to at least 2 startups. So my day is not complete if I don't have 2 startup conversations. Definitely more than that, wherever possible. But that's what it is. And I think 2 ways. I think it works 2 ways. It's that it's not that I'm here as a guru sitting and giving yarn to the startups. Every discussion I have with the startup, I also learn a lot. It's been a very wonderful journey with T-Hub, not just because I'm doing great things, but I'm also learning a lot. And I think that's a value that I bring to myself. And as part of that, I think I can add values into the startup journey. You're on mute, Taha.
Sorry again. No, I think very true. It's already good to see the type of impact, and also the folks, be it startups and the folks associated, talk about the entire model at T-Hub. Now, T-Hub is a very interesting model, right? So it's a triple helix model that you follow over there. It's a close partnership between government, academia. You have 3 host institutes that are coming together from all different backgrounds. ISB, IITM, and then Law College, and then you also have industry partners coming together and building T-Hub. Right. So what are some of the advantages where you have, all 3 key players in the ecosystems coming together and building something that is enabling the startup ecosystem in the region and now, across the country itself?
Okay. See, I think Rahul, Paul, and Zaran have touched upon these points a little bit in different areas. So if I were to look at it, for us, startup is a focal point, right? They are the ones who are actually going to execute the work and implement new solutions, which will be beneficial for the society at large into the future. Now, for this to happen, right, they need the support of the 3, which is what we believe. So if I look at academia, right, I think there's a talk of a lot of academic accelerators and incubators. Academia, the advantage is that they're not constrained by profits and losses or business top lines, bottom lines. So they're free thinkers and they actually put their mind into it and say, okay, what is possible? So they're like very research oriented. Sometimes it works against them that they're not time bound, but a lot of new ideas, brainstorming, etc., comes from the academia, right? There are a lot of faculty research that goes on, industry grants driven or government grants driven. Now, the second player is the government. I mean, they're all equal. They're just taking them in some sequence. So government is that it is a key player in two things. One is that there is no corporation that can provide a larger demand than the government, right? If the government has a specific need, we will usually see that when government becomes the buyer, automatically it will find its applications in the other corporations and industry areas because it is meant for a society at large, right? Third, equally important is that for startups to thrive, there are sometimes a lot of policy changes or policy definitions that are required to help the startups to actually implement them, so make them viable. And government is the only player who can do that. So while corporates sit there, they try to say, okay, I'm not able to do this because of this policy. They cannot influence the policy. Fortunately, we have governments who actually listen to the startups. They see the pain points of the startups and actually cooperate in building or defining the policies or sometimes modifying the policies, and in rare cases, doing away with policies which are detrimental to growth. So in that sense, government becomes a very key player. The third one is the corporates or the industry that we call it, right? Who are they? What are they doing is that they're actually going and implementing these solutions. Startup may actually write the code, develop the solutions, etc. But the application areas, like there is a security issue at an airport, it's not a startup that's going to solve. It's the airport authority or the GMR airport in Hyderabad or Indira Gandhi airport in Hyderabad. That administration will go and find the startup, get the government policies done, get the research from academia done, work with the startup and implement the solution that is meaningful, right? And startup becomes the kind of the integrator of these three parties to say that get the ideas from the academia, get the support from the government, get the buy-in from the industry, and then make things happen in the real world. So this is all real world game. It's not about theoretical, research oriented, research for the sake of research. With these four players coming together, you have research that actually benefits the society.
True. I think, like you said, I think it's the, each party is coming with their own strengths itself. And I think, in many cases, we do see a very strong academy and corporate partnerships. But, by also getting support from the government, there's also kind of push towards the policy and support, which government has intent for, right? But not really coming into the ground in the right way in many cases. But I think such partnerships ensures the direction the government is taking itself is coming out. And I think the success of that can also talk about the version 2 of T-Hub that is also being planned and launched in a much bigger way, right? I'm sure that it's the success in the last 6 years that T-Hub has made that has also just ensure that initial plan continues going in that direction. Now, we talked about accelerator programs and enablers, how we can really help support startups. And I know this is the question I asked, almost all the panelists as well. With T-Hub doing so many different programs, be it investment readiness, acceleration, product readiness itself, right? What are some of the factors that you think T-Hub, has been able to do or has been key to the success of these programs at T-Hub that startups really appreciate itself?
Okay. I mean, that's a very broad question. There are a lot of factors that go into it. I will start with one thing that actually makes my life easier in being, contributing to this success is that first is that I don't have a sales focus, which is I don't have a target to say that I need to create such top line, the bottom line, etc. I think Paul also mentioned that he's not part of a product team where it has sales driven. It is more for in terms of, as we mentioned earlier, it is more of a value proposition and outcome driven, right? So that's where I start with. For that to happen, my first focus and T-Hub focus is that who are the where is the success coming from? Success is not coming from innovation ideas, the business model, the revenue models, or the investments. They're all enablers. The success comes from the people. For me, there are two categories of people. One is the people that are working with me in T-Hub, which is the employees of T-Hub, right? They have to be focused. They have to believe in the startup journey. So we go and hire people who have been founders, who've been through the journey, who have done successful exits that have been a failure, right? Or raised investments, whatever it is. That we have multiple dimensions in that, and these are the people that will enable these startups to succeed. Second important thing is that when we actually engage with startups, more than me talking, I mean, even though I said I do talk to two startups, the startups get the most value from talking to their peers. I mean, somebody who is not having the skin in the game today probably is not the best person to guide the startups, so the experience does help, right? So we look at EIRs, entrepreneurs in residence, as we are fortunate that we've had more than, I think, almost now getting closer to 1,500 startups that have passed through between the walls of T-Hub. And we have a vast pool of the founders that we can reach out to who have had various struggles in the journey, success failures, and these people guide the current set of founders in the programs. Next, the third part of the people is the founders themselves. Is that we actually spend a lot of time understanding the founders. I forgot whether it is Paul or Rahul who said that they focus a lot more. I think even Zaran mentioned that when they actually apply the filtering criteria, they look at the founders. And we do the same. Every program that we onboard the startups, I make sure that I talk to each and every founder before they join the program. It's not only to understand them, also to set the expectations on what they should be doing in the program. Right? Of course, all these things about understanding the journey, the trends, technology changes, the market changes, these are all important, but I think that's something pretty much everybody can do. The next part is that, we are now in the last 1 year, because of the pandemic, one of the key areas of focus has been that we look at it and say, okay, what are the risk factors? How do you manage your risk? Risk managers become a primary driver for all our programs, saying that, yes, I mean, hopefully we'll get some unicorns into the future, but our focus is that, we don't want startups to fail. That's the first thing, is how do you ensure that you don't fail? Sorry. So we are also proud because when we actually did an audit in the beginning of the year after last year's pandemic in January 2020, we audited almost 170 startups that were associated with T-Hub. And we found that only one startup had closed shop in 2020, despite the large-scale pandemic there. So we are proud of the fact. I mean, we can't boast that we have a unicorn out of T-Hub, but we are very proud that we have guided the startups in such a way that nobody had to close shop and go home. Yes, they had a lot of people had to scale down their operations, let go of people, etc. Right? That's always there. Next one is in terms of, we are now working with saying that, okay, as much as we build the team here, it is important for us to also have the expert guidance. So I think some of the Headstart members and volunteers are working with us as consultants, and they bring in a lot of expertise, a very different perspective to the startup founders, making them think differently. And of course, the partnership, we're already partnering with Headstart. We're also partners with Paul in terms of Google for Startups. Rahul, good to connect with you. We'll reach out later to build your partnerships. Right? So I think that's a success. That's the only success mantra is partnerships. Right? Next part, as I said, I do talk to startups, and I have a simple measure of whether my conversations are effective or not. Is that I need to upset at least one founder every week. That is the kind of target I have, that saying that am I being open or am I being guarded conversation, saying that I want to look nice to the founder. It's not my job to be nice to the founder. It's my job to be honest and open to the founder. And if I don't upset at least one founder every week, that means I'm not doing my job. Right? And there are a lot more factors. I think in the interest of time, I would say that these are the key factors that we are looking to say that are helping us help the startups.
So I think, when we decided to chat and talked about, the people as a big factor for you, I could see, in almost all of these places, the people was actually the consistent part, right? Be it the team itself, be it the, past alumni of T-Hub or the startups or the partners. I think, being able to work with people successfully, being able to be having value-driven conversations is something that, we see a lot with you and the T-Hub itself, and also the type of impact that T-Hub has created the ecosystem, right? Uh, One very interesting factor, right? When this is something that we also have discussed in the past as well, has been different models that different accelerator programs do, right? In terms of the cost of the program, right? So we have few accelerator programs in which it's more of an investment-driven program. We have in which it's basically equity which is the startup is giving as part of the support that they are getting. And in case of T-Hub, we do see a free model being there, right? And of course, both the models have their own strengths and their values, right? Would love to understand from T-Hub, what is the thought process of going with a fixed fee model for the program? What are some of the feedback that you have gotten from the portfolio startups in why this model has been effective for them or better for them?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take a very simple analogy on a light note. I think hope to keep the conversation light. Is that if you go to a child, right, who has a room full of toys, but only one chocolate, right? You ask the child to give me something. The last thing that the child will hand over to you is a chocolate, even though that is probably the smallest thing in the room and is probably the cheapest thing in the room. So whatever is in short supply is what is valued most by the user. So our philosophy is that if I'm asking a startup to pay, let's say 1 lakh as a fee, program fee, and for them, cash is something that they're burning, they feel very tight, especially startups who are bootstrapped or only got money from friends and family, who are the typical startup that to join our programs. Very rarely they have already raised some kind of angel or seed funding. Then anyway, cash is not a problem for them. Actually, they're very reluctant to part with equity because there are a lot of other constraints. So simple thing is that startups value cash the most. And if I'm able to convince a startup to pay me 1 lakh for a program, two things. One is that it brings the seriousness on part of the startup saying that, hey, I'm burning 1 lakh, which is the most precious commodity to me today. So I better make sure two things. One is the program is relevant to me. And once I join the program, I give my full commitment to the program so that I can learn. So it's a model, we have the often said adage saying that teach people how to fish and then they can fish for their lifetime, not give them the fish. Right? So their programs are designed that way. And, we put a very low cost. I mean, our programs, although fee-based, are low-cost models because we're not very capital intensive in that. So the cash brings seriousness. Second thing we have found is that at very early stages, founders do not have a very good idea of what equity means to give away equity. I've heard founders come and say, what, I raised 30 lakhs and I gave away 30%. 30% equity in a startup is what, at least 10 times 30 lakhs. And if I were to take, let's say, I mean, I've had startup founders come and say, what, I don't want to pay 4 lakh, please, I'll give you 5% equity. 5% equity, even if the startup is worth as low as 1 crore, which is hardly any startup today values themselves at 1 crore or less. 1 crore valuation, 5% is 5 lakhs. And I'm saying that you're ready to trade 5 lakhs for a program fee of 1 lakh. That is not meaningful. That's so whoever offers this 5% to me is not fully understanding their journey. But having said all of these things, right, we are actually now going into the equity model. We have started the first batch of this thing where we have offered program participation through equity. We're slowly acquiring that. So there are two other factors that become very critical. Is that once a startup pays fees, right, they now feel a need or a possibility of demanding from the program, saying that I made the money, show me the value for the money, right? So they are no longer going to sit idle and say, okay, I gave 3% away, it doesn't matter, whatever happens. If I don't grow anyway, see, if they don't raise a fund, 3% of zero is zero. Yeah. So they don't give a damn, right? Second thing is that's why in that sense, they feel the need to make it happen. From our side, fees is kind of a liberating for us, because once the fee is paid, the commitment is made from the startup. I need to focus only on making sure that we deliver value for the startup. Whereas if I have an equity model, I have to think long term and say, okay, hey, what's going to happen next 5 years, 3 years? What's going to happen? Who is going to invest? How much are they going to raise? When am I going to actually get my exit? Right? Just because they raise 3 rounds of funds does not mean I get to exit, right? So my program value proposition deviates from that and then goes into looking at the money that the value I can generate commercially in 3 years, 5 years from now. That kind of takes away my focus. I'm not finding fault with the model, but our focus is to make sure that we enable things. Last point is that we are looking at a scale of programs. I think most incubators, accelerators work with 2-3 cohorts in a year. We are now talking about impacting 300 to 400 startups in a year. In that scale of possibility, we looked at it and say that managing equity of 300, 400 startups itself requires a separate team to operate. So we're choosing to stay away from it.
No, fair enough. And I think we do see a lot of programs both in here and abroad as well, having success fee, have a seriousness fee model, right? Yeah. Where it's not the amount, it's more of the intent. And I think you very rightly said the example where you need to take what is most precious, because that also brings in the seriousness of the startup. And the equity model for a serial entrepreneur or a seasoned entrepreneur, right? They understand the value of equity, and for them, it's a no-brainer to always, prefer to give in a fee versus that part of it, because they have that vision, right? But a lot of times we do see, with first-time founders, not really valuing the equity that much and not really understanding the scope of it as well, right? And I think being able to have that hybrid where you identify, hey, what is most serious to you, right? Yeah. Because the intent at the end of the day is that as programs, you're putting in all the effort to help them, but the program will only be successful when these startups are serious about it, right? When they have that complete vested interest for their growth, and they do believe that right to ask for that support that they need from the partner itself, right? And I think that's also a message for all the enablers in this conversation, which is very important, right? Making sure that the whatever arrangement that the enabler chooses, it's important that the accountability has to be there, where the startup can come up and ask, hey, I deserve this, right? And that also is a very good challenge. It's a very important challenge for the incubator or the accelerator, because that really pushes them, enables them to do even better. I think one larger, we are going to be on time, so I just want to end with one important thing, and this is again coming back to the overall theme itself. T-Tribe, right? One of the very interesting programs at T-Hub, which I am very fascinated about personally, right? The type of work that you're doing with students, with colleges, setting up their incubators, the entire vision when it comes to enabling the ecosystem much deeper through supporting them from a very early stage and supporting them through multiple multiple spaces itself, right? I'm sure that there's been an amazing amount of learnings that you have gotten by doing this entire experiment with multiple sort of colleges, incubators that you have set up with these partners, and also doing college programs. Personally, that's something that you're also very passionate about as well. Is there any learnings that you would love to share with all the enablers in this call? Something that they can take back and think about for their own programs or their own support that they are looking to build for startups in their ecosystem?
That's a very good question. So I mean, see, the thing is that incubators, especially specifically in the academic institutions, are seen as some activity to do to kind of enhance the brand of the institution. Right. So I would request is that move away from the concept that they're an extension of an institution and they're just there to enhance. It's like another checkbox for AICTE or somebody to say that, hey, it's certified. Right. Look at it and say that if you're going to create an incubator, right, deal with it as a new startup in your institution. Right. If you want to help startups in the future, make your incubator itself as a startup. But that first step in that is going to be that who are the founders of this incubator? They cannot be part-time professors, faculty, or heads of department. who are saying that, you know what, I think you have some bandwidth. Can you also look into this? That cannot be second priority. Whoever is going to head this incubator must be only focused on the incubator. So it's all, I mean, it goes back to what I said earlier, is that as startup founders, we look at the founders. As running an incubation program, which is my responsibility, I look at my team, who are the people. Same thing applies for anybody who wants to set up an incubator. Is first is invest in the people, invest in the first 2 people that you bring into the incubation. Make sure they are the right people, they have the passion to build the incubator. They should not be looking at it as a 9-to-5 job or kind of a sabbatical from their teaching or administrative efforts and say, hey, let me do this for 2 years and then I'll go back to my job. That cannot be the thing, right? Second thing is that there is a lot of help available. I think all the panelists here are very experienced. They're all there to help, right? You all come from different backgrounds. We are there to help you. Seek help. A lot of times we have seen is that institutions tend to kind of, once they get this going, they'll say like, okay, call someone, some principal, some of the head of the department, some dean and say, you know what, this guy is having problem. Can you help him out? That individual does not have the knowledge of the journey of the incubator or the startups. And you're getting the wrong kind of help, wrong kind of guidance. Seek help. I think pretty much, I mean, there are a lot of, I see the list of participants. There are experienced people who are running incubators on a private model. And they know what is required to be done. And all academic institutions should reach out. I talked about partnerships earlier. Just as much as it is important for me to run my programs, it is important for any academic institution to build that partnership with the incubator system in the state or in the geography that you are in, and seek their help. They'll be happy to guide you. And they won't necessarily look at everything as a commercial model. A lot of them are well-meaning and they want to help out. They're happy to see somebody else succeeds, right? And the team, as I already said, has to be focused and dedicated. It cannot be part-time. I'm sorry to say, I've seen too many academic institutions just give it as a official and special duty kind of a role, saying that, why don't you also do this? And next point important is that once you decide to do this, make them independent and somewhat autonomous. Maybe they have report to the vice chairman or chairman of the institute, who has the overall side, but don't make them part of departments or don't make them part of HR department or placement departments. And that basically you are kind of devaluing your own incubator, saying that you're just part of one department and the department head oversees it. A department head's focus is always going to be in terms of implementing the curriculum and making sure the students pass and get jobs placed. Their focus will not be in running the incubator. And I don't know, I'm not commenting on any individual faculty, but whether they have the entrepreneurial mindset is also entrepreneurship mindset comes into question, right? It is not guaranteed that every faculty is an entrepreneurial mind. If it is not there, you're not helping the incubator team to listen. Next is Industry Connect. We talked about academia, industry, government. Industry Connect is very critical for it's not just for job placement. If you want an incubator, make sure that you have at least 1 or 2 industry partners that are willing to support your incubator. And that you should do it before you assign the first person to do it, right? Similarly, you can also seek to other incubators. Unfortunately, in India, we have come up with this mindset, thanks largely to IT, that we see everybody else who does similar work to us as competitors. We are not, right? At T-Hub, I don't look at any incubator as my competitor, and I don't want to be seen as a competitor to anybody. We have been trying to discuss the startup gene of different forums, saying that we are not competitors, we want to collaborate, right? So probably academic institutions also can collaborate. You can discuss together. I think today we had discussions on what are the best practices. Why not academic institutions that have incubators come together, discuss what is working with their systems, what is not working with them, right? And then try to work out solutions which are meaningful for academic institutions along with incubators. Because private incubators work in a very different model with a different set of challenges, etc. And academic institutions are slightly different. Please try to collaborate with each other to find the problem solutions. Final point is that, which is something I'm seriously seeing as lacking, which is that a lot of these institutions do not put emphasis on mentor pool. They see it as, go get investors, go get somebody who will sponsor programs, etc. And the last thing they look for is a mentor pool. I would say the first job that the incubator, the top two people, I was part of an interview panel, JNTU. I was very happy to see that the first two positions they were trying to hire is incubation manager, second is mentor manager. And I think that's the only way to start, is that your second person in the incubator has to be a mentor manager whose job from day one is to go and build a mentor.
So I think
Only then your incubator is successful.
no, those are like really, really valuable points, Suresh. And I, personally, I concur to all of them. Where as we are looking at collaborations and partnerships, I think the mindset has to change. Where from talks around competition, it's all about collaborations. And this is a great platform where we have all partners coming together from all diverse backgrounds. So we have the incubator, the corporate, the investment arms all coming together, and then all sharing the same learning. Them all talking about the same ecosystem enablement that are required to make all of this successful. And I think this message has been very important for all the next gen of incubators, because they are very important for the development, right? The type of startups that we are seeing grow in the ecosystem right now, we need more and more incubators. We need to ensure that, especially in tier 2, tier 3 cities, in different places, from a very early age, people are able to bring that mindset of solving problems and bringing problems, identifying the right problems and solving them. Right. And I think that's what entrepreneurship is all about. And enabling them at an early stage will really create better opportunities for us. And I think, as an academic institutions, we do see the focus. Of course, the mandate from the government is there, but how do we really implement that on the ground effectively? And I think the points that you mentioned over there, be it the focus, the clarity, from the senior leaders to the team itself, and then the support that they are building in. Right. And similar to like T-Hub, Headstart also has been very actively working with incubators, enabling that part of it, and we want to work together, right? Be with T-Hub, be with any other partners that we are doing. For us, the intent remains the same. The more and more incubators are able to come up, the better support that they are able to provide. The pipeline is being built in the right way, where from the early stage the startup gets the support, and then we also have corporates like Google and Microsoft coming in, helping their hand in to be able to provide the tech support, the mentor pools also over there. And then we also have investor partners like Untitled also coming in and saying, hey, now are they showing traction, are they showing value, let me now invest in them and take it future. So I think each player plays his role in this entire pipeline, and each of them is very important for the ecosystem to overall evolve itself.
So one last comment is that, see, India as a country, I'm not talking about incubation or anything. So we have, I think in the last few years at least, we are beginning to live with the concept of too big to fail kind of enterprises. And I think that's proving very, very expensive to the country as a large. So whereas the incubation and the startup ecosystem fails opportunities for failure, gives opportunities for somebody to try something and fail, but not at a very high cost. And I think this is the model. This is the future of India. Startups I see as the future of India. It's not going to be, there will be a few large corporations, but it is the startups that will drive this side the future of India. And the incubators will play a huge role in making it.
No, truly agreed on that, Suresh. Thank you so much, Suresh, for coming to this panel and sharing all of these wise wisdoms to the panel, to the entire group over here. I would love for all the panelists to also come, open the screen so that we can have all of you guys together. We'll open up for a couple of questions if we have any. I know we are almost on time for the panel discussion, but has been a very, very, very interesting learning for all of us over here, be it startups or be it enablers itself. So Mukesh, are we able to get any questions through chat, or if folks can raise hands if they have any? Okay. So in case any of the participants, if you have any questions, feel free to put in the chat or raise the hands, and we'll see if we can give you access to ask the questions live over here.
So I think Taha, you have asked so many questions so wonderfully, and you have grilled all the panelists over there in a detailed way. But yeah, we are open for the questions. If any of the attendee have any questions, please feel free. And meanwhile, if Taha can drive some more questions, if he has.
No, I think to be honest, it's been a very detailed conversation itself. It has been really good to actually, hear from all different, people from different type of enablements coming in, right? It's good to see the investment community, the corporate side of it, and the academia and the government accredited incubator space all coming together and sharing some of the best practices in this space. I think the collaboration that we see, and that was generally the theme that we had for today's session. I think this is the perfect platform for that, where we have folks like Rahul, Paul, and Suresh and Zaran, all talking about the importance of people itself in driving all of these things, be it in the startups, be it in the teams who are driving it. For the panelists, any last comments, any thoughts? It's been a long discussion, but anything that you would like to share as the parting notes for the audience or for the team members over here?
Suresh,
I'd like
just
to
wanted to mention that T-Hub and Microsoft is working very, very closely. So would look forward to interacting with you also.
Definitely, I actually know Latika from 2006, so
Okay.
yes, it'd be good to reconnect and then see something.
Paul, any?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say, thank you for inviting me here, and I'm happy to share that like almost all people on this panel have engaged with Rahul. Good to connect, and it's really about coming together as a community because the opportunity at hand for the country is so big, and to like the words of Suresh, right? I think the larger goal here is for all of us to collaborate and come together. And there is no such thing as competing. I think the opportunity is too large for us to think of that. And I'm happy to work with each of you and engage. And again, just thanks for really having this great discussion today.
So I'm ready to make two offers, open offers from my side. I'm fortunate to be, to have the freedom to make these offers. One is that I think the last point that we discussed about incubators, etc. So I am happy to provide on behalf of T-Hub, if any incubator, academic incubator is being set up, if you want us to guide, not the entire overall program, but if you want us to help in the initial identification of the first two people, as I mentioned, which is the most critical, we are happy to help you in that. I've been on some of the incubator interview panels, and I've learned a lot about how they think, etc. That's one. That is for the incubators. If there are any founders out there, okay, again, as I said, very first point is that I don't have any sales target, so I'm not selling anything to you. But if you feel that we at T-Hub, or I think any of the panelists here, can help you with our conversations, please feel free to reach out to us. Don't hesitate just saying that, hey, if I talk to T-Hub, they'll ask me for a fee. No, we won't ask you for a fee, right? You please come talk to us. We'll be happy to guide you.
So just quick question. What's the best way to connect with you?
LinkedIn.
Perfect. So I will be sharing the LinkedIn profile for all the panelists over here on our LinkedIn page with the post. So for folks who are looking, to reach out to them, just come on to Headstart's page. You'll see the event. You'll see all the panelists tagged over there, and that could be a connection point to them. And through Prashant, I think Prashant was actually very keen on understanding what has happened to his application. I'm sure a ping to Suresh on LinkedIn will help you move that needle forward over there.
Sorry, was there a question for me specifically? I didn't hear.
Yes, so we had one of the founders talking about his application and wanted to reach out to you personally.
Absolutely. Prashant, sorry, I don't know the details, but please do message me on LinkedIn. I think Taha will share the LinkedIn profile. Please connect with me. I'm happy to connect with any startup. Okay? It doesn't matter whether you join us or not. Please connect. I'll be happy to have the conversation. Come down to T-Hub, in fact. I'll be happy to sit and talk to you.
Thank you so much. I think that's first of all, that's a wonderful offer. I think for both startups and incubators, feel free to reach out as well. I think there are enough folks in the ecosystem, like Suresh mentioned, who are very happy. It's just that being able to reach out and ask for that help is very important, and building that team is a great starting point. So that's great, Suresh. Zaran, any thoughts from your side? Any last comments?
I think just how truly it is an ecosystem and anyone that's trying to build, right? If you look at the connective tissue between the panelists here today, a large number of Antil portfolio have full co-sale with Microsoft. Google offers us Google for Startups program. And actually, we mentioned Athena. Google is actually going to be training our entrepreneurs on how to manage their OKRs when the program starts. Antil was born in a T-Hub office, right? So just the connective tissues between us already are so tight and so strong. And any other incubator comes in, it's literally what we all hear about, is network effects, right? The more we have another incubator, there'll be more connective tissue between all of us. There'll be more support to our portfolio startup. So if this is something that I would like to leave you with, is how amazing people can connect quickly and support our portfolio firms. So with that, Taha, thank you for having us. And I cannot wait for the rest of Startup September.
Well, thank you so much. I think it's a great start. And like Zaran, you were saying, I also see a lot of startups being able to leverage multiple such partnerships, right? And then there is a vast majority of them who are not able to do even one, right? I think the difference over there is just identifying what type of help you need, where you are, who is the right partner who can help you, and reach out. I think there are enough enablers out there in the ecosystem who are always willing to help. It's just that asking the right question or being able to put the right frame up. I think that's very important to be able to make that connection. But at the same time, I think the entire ecosystem is very well connected, and being able to reach out to the right people, I think you will be able to solve these things very well. But thanks, Zaran, for that example. I think it's great to see all of this thing being connected over here in a very small world. Rahul, any last comments on your side?
Oh, I think as a community builder, I'm so glad to see all of this happening, around us, always there to help people out at a personal level as well. So just wanted to put this across to the attendees that don't consider me as a Microsoft person, consider me as a community builder. Reach out to me for any help you need. If I won't have the answers, I'll actually get somebody who can answer to you, So that's what I was going to share.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Rahul, Paul, Zaran, and Suresh for coming down over here. I think this has been a great session. A lot of good learnings, a lot of deeper insights into different things being done to support startups and accelerate them. Very good learnings in terms of how startups can actually come in and enable that, and for also a lot of incubators and ecosystem enablers in terms of how can they build such partnerships that helps develop these ecosystems much stronger, right? And I think this is just the start of September. Like Zaran said, we all are waiting for a lot more things. We'd love to have all of you guys also engage us over there as well. We'll keep you posted about all the other things going on. We have a series of events and activities going on. Mukesh, would you mind sharing what's coming up in the next few days as well for the members, so that they can also have a look at it? I think it's we have a session with all our hubs coming for the next 2 days. So we have around 16 hubs. Yeah, Mukesh, please go ahead.
Yes, so tomorrow we'll be having a session with all the hubs, all the incubator hubs. We have listed 12 such ASCs, the innovation hub from India. They will be having like one talk we'll have tomorrow, and then 6 people will be coming day after tomorrow. On the day 4th, which is on 4 September, we have one more session on IP, due diligence for the investors and VCs. I request all the people to join that as well. On the 4th, we have one more session on the Medi games. That will again be something which I think most of the people would like to attend. 6th September is something again when we are starting one on IP and tech transfer, which is like one thing incubators would like to attend. And on the 7th September, we'll be having one more again on the CSR for the startup ecosystem. And I believe that incubators and startups would love to learn how the CSR fund can benefit them to accelerate their journey as well. And on the 7th day, again, we have one more thing on the tourism, which is done by Fire Accelerator. This will again be a panel discussion, and so on and so forth. We'll be having more than 30 or 50 sessions, I can say. So if I'll start going with the list, then it will be very lengthy.
No. I think a week is enough. We'll keep people in mind.
For the whole month, we have a lot of sessions. Do regularly visit our website, startupseptember.in. I have shared the links, as well as I have shared a link for all the panel speakers who are here. Feel free to connect with them. Try to build your community, try to build your network, and leverage the benefit which you guys will be getting.
Yes, and just one last thing, because this is something that we have discussed very actively in this entire program itself, the role of mentors. So on 5th September as well, we basically, on Teachers' Day, we will also launch a formal Headstart mentor program which is focused on enabling the startups and the community builders, the enablers, in getting access to mentors and also bringing more mentors in the ecosystem. So look forward to sharing more news on that with all of you guys. Perfect. Thank you so much for all joining in. It was great to have you. We'll be in touch, and all of you have a good day and a good month. Take care, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, Taha, for bringing us.
See you, folks. Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you.
Thank you
Have a
so
good
much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Taha. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mukesh.